Because the transgression of the Torah shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. That's been rattling around in my brain for the past few days. And while I was thinking about it, Yahuwah reminded me of an experience that I had back in around 2020, 2021. I was working at a hotel, and mind you, Yahuwah had just awakened me at the end of 2019, but I hadn't come into the knowledge of Yahuwah and Yahusha until around the end of 2020. So I was fresh into this. I don't want to call it the awakening because there's a lot to unpack with that, but I was a babe. Let's just put it that way. So I was working at this hotel as a housekeeper, and the executive housekeeper, the manager over the housekeeping department, she wasn't a mean person, but she wasn't a happy person either. And because of whatever was going on with her, she would come to work and she was just insufferable. Like, it was one of those things that, like, she would just do and say things that made you want to face palm. And I was praying, fasting a lot back then as well. And, one day we had a very busy day at work, and I was the last person there, which I forgot to mention that, she and I had a love-hate relationship because I hated how she was sometimes, but I loved the fact that she was the type of manager that she didn't tell you to do anything that you hadn't seen her do. And she would get in there and help you do your job as well. And I respected that. And she respected me because I didn't call out. I wasn't late to work. And when I got to work, I did my job and I did it well. I was the only housekeeper that was a self-inspector because of how well I did my job. So one day we were extremely busy at a hotel in housekeeping. When you're busy, that means that you have a lot of check-outs and also a lot of check-ins. So normally, if we don't have a lot of check-ins, we can roll rooms over until the next day to clean them. But if we have a lot of check-ins coming in, all those rooms that just checked out, we also have to make sure we get them clean so the guests that are coming in can check in. And check-in starts at 3:00 at most hotels. So we have to make sure we get a lot of them done at least by 3:00. And this is over 100 rooms. And I think at the time we had about 7 housekeepers. Obviously, everybody didn't work the same day. So our boards were looking like we had like 20 something rooms, almost 30 rooms a piece. The thing about it is, it sounds like, oh, that's not bad until you become a housekeeper and you learn that actually is a lot of work. Anyway, so one day we were leaving. I was the last person done, and the executive housekeeper can't leave until everybody is done, and then she has to shut down, or he, if it's a he, but they have to shut down the housekeeping department. So we're leaving out of the laundry room. That's where the lockers and the clock in and clock out machine was. And I looked at her, and her countenance was extremely dark. And I heard Ruach HaKodesh say, ask her how she's feeling. So I did. And then for the next hour and a half, this woman poured her whole heart out to me. What I didn't know was, until she told me, after I asked her how she was feeling, that day was the anniversary of her grandson's death. I want to say it was about 9 years prior. I could be wrong about, how long ago it was, but she had a grandson. He was 3 at the time. He died in a house fire. I'll leave it there. But that day was the anniversary of his death. So she had been extra pleasant, hear my sarcasm, that day because of what she was dealing with internally. And so when Ruach HaKodesh told me to ask her, how are you feeling today? It's like she couldn't hold it in anymore, and she just let it all out. And then when she got done talking, she looked at me curiously and she said, how did you know? And I just said, Ruach HaKodesh. So I went home. I think I was off the next day, but when I came back to work the day after that, she was a completely different person. And everybody was making note of the fact that she was extremely happy, bubbly, she that dark countenance was gone. She was just bright and bubbly and happy all the time. And she still is to this day. We still keep in contact. It's no esteem to me. It's all esteem to Yahuwah, because Yahuwah knew what that woman was dealing with. And I'm purposely not saying her name. But Yahuwah knew what that woman was dealing with. And Ruach HaKodesh, when I was told to ask her how she was feeling, that was an invitation for me to step outside of my own hurt and pain to see someone else's. And when I did just that, when I was obedient, that thing that was tormenting her for all these years came off of her, came out of her. All esteem to Yahuwah Zaba'ath. He knew what it took to free her of that. So, in connection to Matthew 24:12 and 13 that I read at the beginning, and because the transgression of the Torah shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold, but he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. I'm starting to see a lot of people with hate in their heart. And understand, I'm not talking about Babylon. We know why they got hate in their heart. They dead in their sin and their transgression, unfortunately, as of right now. I'm talking about Yasharal. When someone is presenting themselves a certain way to you, do you stop and say, I wonder what they got going on? I wonder what they've been through. I wonder if they're okay. I need to go pray for them. Let me go talk to Ak or Akoti. Or do we say, who do they think they are? Every time I turn around, they got this to say and they got that to say. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Do you get irritated or do you feel compassion? Because that is an indication of your heart posture. Because think about it. All of us in Yasharal are being awakened out of the fever dream that we have been in for however long you've been in it. We're all not the same age, but whenever it was Yahuwah woke you up, you've been in a fever dream. Then he woke you up out of trauma and chaos. And then he invites you, before you fully go into the house, he invites you to deal with that trauma and chaos. So when you go into the house, you're not infecting the people in the house with your trauma and chaos. That's the process. You remember when Maryam was sitting at Yahusha's feet and Martha was like, yo, bid her to come help me. And Yahusha had to put Martha back in her place gently. And he was like, yo, she's chosen that good thing and it should not be taken from her. Maryam was sitting at his feet and learning. And part of that sitting at the feet is confession. You sitting down there and you're starting to realize when the word of Yahuwah starts to speak, you're able to see what's wrong inside of you, what's going on with you. And when Yahusha says to take the plank out of your eye before you can see fit to take the speck out of your brother's eye, the importance behind that is if you don't take the plank out of your eye and someone comes to you, you're going to get offended. Someone comes to you that Yahuwah needs you to help, or Yahuwah has put you there to help. Let's put it that way. Someone comes to you that Yahuwah has put there for you to help them, but you haven't taken the plank out of your eye. So instead of you helping them, you become offended. And now you attack them. You alienate them. You hurt them even more. This is what's been happening a lot in Yasharal, because nobody wants to believe that they're not as righteous as they think they are. Everybody wants to believe that they're the righteous one in a situation and the other person isn't. Nobody wants to introspect. And when I say nobody, when I say nobody, please understand that I know that there's a remnant. The remnant is not included in the nobody. The majority of Yasharal is who's included in the nobody. And if this is hitting you, that means that you are included in the nobody. If it doesn't hit you, but you do understand what's being said, then you are the remnant that it doesn't apply to. It's as simple as that. It's really as simple as that. When you see your brother or sister struggling in their walk, are you moved to compassion to go to war for them, to go to them? Hey, how are you doing today? You feeling all right? And actually care, actually listen. I'm not talking about in the world. The world has taught us to be like, hey, how are you doing today? And then the person actually tells us how they're doing today. And then the person's like, I didn't really want to know how you were doing. It's just something that they say to be polite. I'm talking about you actually ask the person how they're doing, and you really want to listen and hear and know how they're doing, so that you can either minister to them in that moment or go pray for them, and or both. That's our job. And we are the bride, aka helpmeet of Yahusha. Yahusha's job was to do the will of the Father, whatever that will was. And he said he only did what he saw his Father do, and he only said what he heard his Father say. So as the bride / helpmeet, our mission is the will of the Father. So we only do what we seen our king, our bridegroom do, and we only say what we heard our king, our bridegroom say. And Yahusha even said his brothers and sisters and mother are those who do the will of his Father. So that lets us know that it's our job to carry out the will of Yahuwah, just like Yahusha did. And what did he do? What did he say he came to do? He came to set the captives free, set them at liberty. Isn't that what he said? And he got on the religious leaders because they thought they were already righteous. And he said it's only the sick that needs a doctor. Are you sick or are you righteous? Because if you're righteous, you're going to pay for every sin that you've committed with your own blood. Because you've declared, your testimony is that you're righteous enough to do so. But if you're sick, you're accepting that Yahusha paid that price for you. And now you're submitting to him, which is by default submitting to Yahuwah's will. Because again, he was submitted to Yahuwah, and when we submit to him, we're submitted to Yahuwah as well. Listen to this. For the Father judges no man, but has committed all judgment unto the Son, that all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. He that honors not the Son honors not the Father which has sent him. Aman, aman, I say unto you, he that hears my word and believes on him that sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. There's a dream that Yahuwah gave me the other day that I am going to put on here. Yeah, Yahuwah is... Yahuwah's watching us at all times, and he's seeing how we're treating each other. He's seeing how we're treating each other in our faces, and he's seeing how we're treating each other behind our backs. He's seeing that. And a faithful servant is going to fear that. That's going to make you fear Yah. Not in an unhealthy way, not an unhealthy fear. It's going to make you respect him. And understand that he is sovereign. He knows everything. He's everywhere. He sees everything. So when you see your brother or your sister acting a fool, instead of trying to destroy them, why don't you try to see what's going on? And if you don't feel like you can go to them, go to Yahuwah. Pray for them. Our enemy is not each other. Although there are people within Yasharal that will make themselves your enemy, because we saw that with Yahusha. We're not greater than Yahusha. It was his own brethren, and by brethren I mean nation, that petitioned for him to be on that stake. Yes, the Greco-Roman soldiers were the ones that carried it out, but they didn't care if he transgressed Yahuwah's law. That had nothing to do with them. Pontius Pilate was like, shoot, what's that got to do with us? He was trying to free Yahusha. But he understood if he did, he would have a greater problem on his hands. And he's a man of the world. So we understand that he was looking at worldly things. He wasn't worried about spiritual things. But his wife was given a dream. And she even tried to warn him. But it was the religious leaders of Yahusha's time that petitioned Pontius Pilate and persuaded the rest of Yasharal to demand that Yahusha be executed and that they let Barabbas go. As a matter of fact, that was foreshadowed in the story of Yusuf or Joseph, Jacob's son, when he was sent to be the second in command under Pharaoh in Egypt. That's what that represented. The spiritual meaning behind that story represents him being betrayed by his own brethren and handed into slavery. But it was all part of Yahuwah's will, because Yahuwah used that and elevated him into second in command so that he could be in position to later turn around and be the salvation of his brothers and father and mother and sisters and nieces and nephews. That was the purpose of that story, or that account, that thing that Yahuwah did, because these are real people. These are not fictional characters who we're talking about, but Yahuwah set it up that way to tell a story, to foreshadow. Anybody that is into, literature, foreshadowing is very big when you're telling a story, because you want the foreshadowing helps keep the reader intrigued as to what's going to happen at the end of the book. What's the conclusion of this? Because I can see some things going on. And if you're really good at foreshadowing, you won't give everything away, but you'll be able to at least see a picture of what the point is of the whole entire book. And that's what Yahuwah does several times throughout this history book of ours. He foreshadows a lot of things. Going back to Matthew 24, if you look at verse 10, it says, "And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another." Verse 11, "And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many." And then it goes into verse 12 and 13. The thing about it is, Yahushua told us that these things would happen. But in Luke 17 and 1, he tells us, woe unto those through whom the offense comes. You don't want to be that person that's out here offending people. It reads, "Then said he unto the Talmudiyam, it is impossible but that offenses will come, but woe unto him through whom they come." Make sure you're not the one out here shooting fiery darts at your brethren. And when you realize, if you do offend somebody, correct it. Apologize to the person, fast, pray, ask for forgiveness, whatever it is that Yahuwah leads you to do to make that situation right. Now, here's the thing. If you do everything Yahuwah leads you to do to make that situation correct, and that person does not want to receive it, that's not on you. You just got to move on. You got to keep it moving. But we gotta walk in the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahuwah spiritually in his ruach, so that we're not becoming hateful and angry and bitter people towards our own family. And that's just what's been on my heart. Again, I have a dream. I'm going to put it on here whenever Yahuwah tells me to, but he's still revealing aspects of the dream to me, so I don't want to put it on here too early and not say everything that I need to say when it comes to that dream. So I love you all. And I hope you're having a very blessed day. Stay safe wherever you are. And the last thing I'm going to say before I go is, If you got some things going on and you don't feel like you can go to nobody and talk to them, you can always go to Yahuwah. But I'm also going to open myself up as well. You can talk to me. How are you feeling? My family, my mashpaka, how are you feeling? How are you doing? In the midst of a world that's full of chaos, we can have peace in the midst of this chaos because of Yahuwah. But we have to be willing to die to ourselves. But how are you feeling? You can actually reach out to me at my email address and we can have a discussion, because I'm pretty sure you don't want to put how you're feeling in the comment section. And I will leave my email address, just for anybody that doesn't already have it, in the description of this video. So if you need to talk to somebody, I'm here. I suggest the first one you go to is Yahuwah. I am going to open myself up, though. If you need someone to talk to, I am here. I'm your sister. I am here. Have a very blessed day. Shalom.